Clay Ferraro is on the Toyota of Hollywood hotline. Shop over 1,500 Toyotas indoors in one of America's largest showrooms at Toyota of Hollywood on 441 between Hollywood and Sheridan. Clay Ferraro, sports anchor and reporter at WPLG Local 10 here in Miami, usually fairly tempered in his opinions. And now, if you follow Clay on Twitter, say he gets snarky and gets angry at times. And I imagine last night was one of those times. But Clay, I'll ask you to start with, because we kind of each gave our major takeaways, I guess. Because I asked Solana and Crowder at the beginning of the show, do you watch what happened last night and just say, yeah, you got to blow this up? There's nobody that's untouchable, or do you say, hey, buckle up, get it on Friday, see what can happen against Milwaukee? Like, where are you at after last night's game?
Well, I'm at the same place that I've been from the beginning of the season, and that's that they don't have enough, and they didn't do enough in the off season. Now, I think part of that is, they had put themselves in such a bad position with the contracts that they've given out to Duncan Robinson and Kyle Lowry, although ironically, Kyle Lowry is the only reason they were, even in last night's game. But yeah, where I'm at is like, we could just play Tom Petty's free falling for the rest of this segment. That would sum up the Heat and their trajectory right now better than I could.
And Clay, in the paint, pretty much on both sides of the court, they were protecting the rim, and then Clint Capella had them terrified to even look at the rim. What's going on? I didn't see this problem until last night.
Well, I don't know. I think it's been an issue when they go up against certain teams. And I think the thing that it was frustrating watching last night was we've seen this before where teams know that the Heat switch everything and they'll find a way to get Kyle Lowry guarding Clint Capella or, and then when that switches on the other end, then a lot of times he's rebounding against Clint Capella. Like that's not going to work. I remember last year a few times you had like Tyler Hero or Duncan Robinson guarding Nikola Jokic and DeAndre Ayton during a road trip. And it's like, well, I understand the philosophy behind switching everything, and yet there has to be some fail-safe in place where Quinn Snyder can't just consistently find a way to get Clint Capella guarded by Kyle Lowry. Like there has to be something where you fix that. So to me, it's kind of a failure from top to bottom. I don't think the roster is there. I also don't think that Spo has done what he needed to do with what he's got.
You mentioned Quinn Snyder. I saw someone saying yesterday, maybe that's the difference between last season Heat and Hawks in the playoffs and last night Heat and Hawks is you kind of alluded that Quinn Snyder may have outcoached Spo last night. Was Quinn Snyder the difference though?
It was a part of it, but I also think, look, who was the guy who killed the Heat down the stretch? It was DeJounte Murray. One of these teams went out there and got better in the offseason. The other one didn't. And DeJounte Murray was what they did. Now, with that said, the entire season, the Hawks looked like this experiment was a failure. And look, even going into last night's game, it was, more trade rumors surrounding Trae Young, and who knows what his future is going to be. And I don't think anything last night solidified his position there moving forward. And yet when you watched last night and you saw Clint Capella and DeJounte Murray making the big differences for Atlanta, and then you look back to last year and you look back to the offseason when the Heat decided to run it back, and it's like, look, you can't look around and see every team around you get better. You stay stagnant, and then you get surprised when you don't get better. Like, it's a personnel thing. And, the thing that really bothered me in the offseason, and I said this on your show a number of times, it was the idea that we're going to rely on internal improvement, internal development. But it's completely neglecting that every single other team is also relying on internal improvement and internal development. You have to go out and get better. The Bucks did. The Hawks did. The 76ers did. The Celtics did. The Celtics got the guy that I thought the Heat really could have used last night, and I thought a guy that they wouldn't have had to give up a whole lot to get, and they still could have found a way to make it happen in Malcolm Brogdon. That's the type of addition that this team needed. And look, I just think I'm not an I told you so guy. I just think, though, when you look back at the offseason and what happened, you can't really be surprised that this is the position that they're in right now because they simply didn't get better.
Hey, Clay, and they're playing either the Raptors or the Bulls here. And, do you expect some kind of switch up? Because Hawk was joking about it earlier, but Strus and Gabe Vincent combined for 48 minutes on the court. They scored 9 points together. Can they mix something up? Victor Oladipo only 9 minutes, Cody Zeller 4, Kevin Love 3 minutes. Is there going to be a mix up here in this next game?
I mean, maybe you play Zeller more, and obviously it'll depend a bit on who you play. I mean, the thing that's difficult is, the Raptors are going to be a tough matchup regardless. The Raptors were the team that I was really concerned about getting the 8 when the Heat were the 7, and now you're in a much worse spot because let's say they beat Chicago, then all of a sudden they're coming in on your home floor and it's do or die. And that's a team with their length that has given the Heat problems in the past. And so it's just a combination of stuff. And I think it all comes back to, you can do so much with the lineups. You can try to, put Kevin Love back in there, but then you're dealing with his inability to switch effectively and be quick enough on the perimeter. Well, then, okay, so you stick with Strus or Caleb Martin, and then you get beaten up down low because they're not big enough. I mean, it's just it's a combination of personnel failure and rotation failure. You just don't. I don't know that there's a way to overcome the roster failure in order to get to where you want to go. Maybe you do find a way to squeeze one out against Toronto and keep your season going. But here's the thing I would say too, guys, when you're in this spot and go back to look, the Heat are not going to intentionally lose on Friday. That's not in their DNA. But I think we're kind of at the place now where, I mean, you look at having a 1 in whatever chance at Victor Wembanyama or Scoot, and it's like, is that really? Wouldn't that be better than squeaking out a win in a play-in and getting your head bashed in by Milwaukee in the first round? I don't know where this team is at, and I don't see a path to getting better. Very quickly, unless maybe they find a way to get a lottery pick and make some things happen there.
I will say one thing, because Clay Ferraro from Local 10 is with us. He's been on with us throughout the season. He has been consistent in his, overall look at the Heat. And it showed last night. Last night, you were 100% right, because everything, and you just said it, but everything that you had kind of espoused during the season kind of came to fruition last night, which was because we expected the Heat to turn it on. We expected to see playoff Jimmy. Playoff Jimmy was getting blocked at the rim inexplicably. We expected to see a lot of things because in the past, Spo and Riley, they have been able to count on internal guys and make it happen. Last night, it didn't happen. It was like the chickens came home to roost last night. So I'm guessing just by what you said there with Victor Wembanyama, I'm guessing you don't give them much of a chance against Toronto or Chicago, and certainly no chance against Milwaukee if that's what happens.
Well, I don't know. I'm not giving them no chance. I mean, I'd still probably say, I think they'd still be a favorite against, either Chicago or Toronto at home. And I think there's a good reason for that. It wouldn't surprise me a bit if they won that game. In fact, I'd probably, if you forced me to bet $1 on it, I'd say they'd probably find a way to squeeze that one out. It is going to be a tough matchup if it's Toronto. And yet, I guess my point is, does it matter at this point? And when you're looking at Milwaukee, they have so many pieces that can exploit your weaknesses. To me, it's the worst matchup. I thought the way Boston had been playing of late, and especially, you go back and the having to move on from coach and replace it, do all this stuff in the offseason, this turmoil, and the way they played at the end, Boston at least seemed like there was a glimmer of a chance to give them a run. Milwaukee, I don't see it at all. So to me, it's all right, well, if you're choosing between squeaking one out, what's best for the franchise at this point? And I've watched Victor Wembanyama play quite a bit, probably more than I should, because of the chances of him coming here is so minute. And he's just generational. And it's if you have that one chance, that tiny chance, like, isn't that worth it than, compared to getting squashed in the first round? But it's more like what would be best as opposed to what I think is going to happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they're not doing that, Clay.
No, they're not. They're not going to do that. No.
I get what you're saying, by the way. I don't think they have a chance against Milwaukee. I'm with you. I thought they had a chance at least to make it competitive against Boston. Milwaukee's been the best team in the NBA, and it's not close since the turn of the new year. So I'm with you. What about Bam Adebayo, though? Because everybody's upset with him last night, and it's hard not to be. I don't think it's fair to blame all of the discrepancies in second chance points, rebounding, offensive boards in favor of Atlanta, and points in the paint. I don't think it's fair to just place all the blame on Bam. Those are team stats. But because of those discrepancies, clearly Bam Adebayo had very little impact in yesterday's game and got outplayed by a mile. But in terms of, your general takeaway of Bam moving forward, like, can he still be a cornerstone piece of a contending team? Because last night was bad, Clay, and I'm not trying to use one game and basically say enough with Bam Adebayo. I don't feel that way. I still think he can be a 2 or a 3 on a championship team, but a lot of Heat fans, their takeaway yesterday was to just point the finger at Bam.
Well, yeah, no, and I think there's so many levels to this, so let's take them piece by piece. Bam did not play well last night. Now, Bam was also asked to do a lot of things. Somebody posted the blockout stats, and he had so many more blockouts than other teammates. And then when you look at the offensive rebound disparity, it was Anthony Chang of the Herald who posted this. The number of offensive rebounds that the Hawks got off of three-point misses was just bonkers, like 14 or 17. The number was just ridiculous. So, I don't know that you can blame Bam for that. Like, when the rebound is long, that's got to be a team thing. Like, people have to be boxing out around him and going and doing that. So there's that. I think, to your point, this has not been a one-game thing for him, though. Bam has not been the same player since the All-Star break. And I love Bam, man. I love what he brings. I don't know that you can pick more than 2 or 3 players in the NBA who can impact winning without scoring in a game the way he can. And yet, I don't think we've seen that in the second half of the season to the extent that we saw in the first half, in addition to the scoring falling off a bit. So, if the question is, did he play poorly last night? Absolutely. Does he have to play better than he did over the second half of the season and last night in order to be that cornerstone piece? Yes. Yeah, he has to play more like the Bam Adebayo that we saw in the first half of the season. I'm just not ready to dismiss him as being the second or third player on a championship team, because I saw a player who had that ability in the first half of the season before the All-Star break, and then something happened after the All-Star break. I don't know what it was. Maybe he needed a break at that point and didn't get it. Who knows? I'm not here to make excuses for him. I'm not ready to dismiss him as being a possible top 3 player on a championship team, despite the fact he really hasn't played like that since the All-Star break.
And Clay, and Hawk said, kind of asking, did Spo get out coached? Did Snyder do a better job and all that? Does he not have the weapons to do it? Because like you were talking about earlier, where you see Kyle Lowry
55 sitting there on the bench, it's quite a weapon that you're not using.
Clay, I actually started coming around last night in my frustration watching this with my kids, because I'm like, damn, Daddy has no answers for what's going on. But Clay, it's like because Spo is a Hall of Fame coach. He just doesn't have the weaponry to, to go back and forth with another team that has those weapons. What's going on there? Because I don't want to say Spo got out coached, but it kind of sounds like that.
Well, look, I think it's fair to say that, one guy last night did a better job of taking advantage of what he has and than the other guy did. And Quinn Snyder was the one that did a better job taking advantage of what he had. And look, that was with the Heat largely slowing down Trae Young. It was Clint Capella. It was DeJounte Murray. I mean, those were the guys who were giving you a lot of problems. And to me, it was, okay, we know that the Heat are going to come out and do what they can to slow down Trae Young. So how are we going to counteract that? Well, we're going to go to DeJounte Murray. We're going to go to Clint Capella. We're going to beat them up inside. We're going to ISO our big guys on their little guys because for whatever reason they think it's okay to have Kyle Lowry guarding centers in the post. So we're going to yes, I think that's fair to say. And in addition to that, I would say Spo probably also did not have the pieces last night. Like I think that even though Spo I don't think he's done the best job this year of maximizing what he does have. I also don't think that what he has is enough to compete at the highest level in the Eastern Conference anymore. So, I guess it's one of those where it's like, okay, if Spo is doing the absolute best job that he can with this group, then what would the ceiling have been? Like maybe you win a couple of games in the first round. I mean, maybe you get the 5 seed and get a good matchup and who knows, find a way to get out of the first round. I don't see with this roster, even if you have like prime Casey Jones, Red Auerbach as your coach, or Phil Jackson finding a way to lead this team to a championship. And I think that's the standard for the Heat. And they're not there. And I think it largely falls on personnel.
How things can change in a couple of weeks in just the matter of one night. Spo is a bum and Paul Maurice is the best coach in South Florida. Let's go. Going to the playoffs.
He was planting the seeds all year. He knew that they were going to peak at the right time.
Guy was playing chess. We were all watching a checkers game and Paul Maurice was playing chess. All right, we got to go. We're up against a break. Clay Ferraro from Local 10. I'll see you at the Heat game, at the Panthers game tomorrow, Clay.
Yeah, we'll be there as fans. It'll be a blast. See you there.
Yeah, it'll be very cool. All right, I will see you tomorrow. Thanks, Clay.
Yep. Bye-bye.